Tulsi Gabbard. She is a congresswoman from Hawaii who is currently running for president. And we hear a lot about her, even in conservative circles. Why are Republicans so obsessed with her? A lot of Republicans or conservatives seem to kind of love Tulsi Gabbard and her rise to fame. But why is that? That's something that doesn't really make sense to me. Now, I want to be clear, this video is not trying to go after her or attack her, because personally, I feel like she is one of the more interesting candidates the Democrats have offered right now. That being said, if you really look at her policies, she's not extraordinarily different from the rest of the field. So that's what I want to do in this video. To start with, if we look at the other candidates, it kind of seems fairly obvious why she is so popular. I mean, the top three contenders, each of them are 70 or older, and they kind of look like they're just about to fall over. So compared to them, Tulsi Gabbard looks like a huge breath of fresh air, because they obviously are not. So that is one reason why she may be so popular among conservative circles. And this clip is another reason why she's so popular.
Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place. That impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
I could watch that clip so many times and it never gets old. Also, after Hillary Clinton went after her, accusing her of being a Russian asset, she responded in kind on Twitter in a very awesome Twitter thread. So for a number of reasons, she is a fairly popular individual. But like I said earlier, her policies are really not that different from the rest of the Democrats. Here's what I mean. First off, in 2016, after she resigned from the DNC, she endorsed Bernie Sanders, which isn't a huge surprise because it was either him or Clinton, and no one liked Clinton, so it just kind of makes sense. I'm not going to hold that against her. But she also supported Bernie's Medicare for All plan. And now that she is running for president, she has her own variation of that.
I support Medicare for All, and I want to tell you why. It is unacceptable that in our country we pay far more for healthcare than any other country in the world, yet we have far worse outcomes. Medicare for All would take out that insurance company that we are writing a big check to every month for Medicare for All, where we would have that coverage for everyone.
To be fair, it doesn't seem like her plan wants to completely eliminate private insurance like Sanders's does, so that's a little bit less extreme, but it is still going to be a very expensive plan. And to push back a little bit, yes, we do spend more per capita than most other countries, but as far as our health outcomes being less than most other countries, that's a bit debatable. Most of the sources I'm providing come directly from her own website, and this is what it looks like. And I want to point out that when you first go to this website, you have in the bottom right-hand corner this timer ticking down from 1 minute, and it's trying to get you to donate to her campaign. I feel like it's a really brilliant strategy because you look at that, and all of a sudden your heart starts beating, and you think you're going to blow up or something, so you want to donate. But most of the sources, like I said, come from this website. And so if I don't link it directly, it's because it's linked directly through this website. All of my other sources will be down below. So make sure you subscribe so you can always get videos like this with my sources. Under the guise of racial justice, she supports a reparations plan. If elected president, she wants to create some sort of committee which will look at reparations and presumably enact some form of reparations, which is not very popular. You see, only 29% of Americans want reparations, and 67% do not. So almost 70% of Americans disagree with this policy, but it's still something that she wants to enact. Along those same lines, she wants equality for all, which sounds great, but she also supported the Equality Act earlier this year, which again, doesn't sound like a bad thing because who wouldn't support equality for everyone? The problem is, as pointed out by many individuals, and here we have the Washington Examiner, is that bill did not include exemptions for religious institutions. Now you might think that's fine. Why should religious institutions be able to discriminate? Well, the problem is when you look at things like a religious college. Let's look at a Catholic school, for example. If that Catholic school does not want to hire teachers who do not adhere to their own religion, such as homosexuality or transsexual or pro-choice or anything like that, why should they be forced to hire someone like that? It's a religious institution. The Equality Act, presumably, would not allow that to happen, meaning any religious school would not be able to use sexuality or anything like that as a basis for not hiring. Which, again, maybe you think is fine, a lot of Americans, especially religious Americans, would disagree with you. She also supports some measure of gun control. She doesn't go into it too much in detail on her website, but she at least says she wants to ban assault weapons. Also, coming directly from Bernie Sanders' playbook, she wants free college for everybody. She also wants some form, at least, of student debt relief. And these things, again, like all of these other policies, maybe they sound good, but the problem is that the cost of college has increased dramatically. And in large part, that is because of the availability of student loans and federal grants. So if you make it so the government pays even more for this, the cost of college will just continue to increase. And again, coming directly from Bernie Sanders' playbook, she supports minimum wage of $15 an hour federally, which means it would be required at every single job to pay $15 an hour, even though the minimum wage does in fact harm the employment rate. Now let's look at abortion. Where does she stand here? Because she does have a Medicare for All plan, like most of the other Democrats, that means that abortion would be covered and funded by the government. So yes, all 860,000 abortions that are happening on a yearly basis under Tulsi Gabbard would be paid for by us, the taxpayers. That being said, she is a little bit less pro-choice or pro-abortion than some of the other Democrats. Here's what I mean.
I agree with Hillary Clinton on one thing, disagree with her on many others, but when she said abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, I think she's correct. I do, however, think that there should be some restrictions in place. I support codifying Roe v. Wade while making sure that during the third trimester, abortion is not an option unless the life or severe health consequences of a woman are at risk.
So at the very least, she stands by the safe, legal, and rare that Clinton used back in the 90s. So at least that's something. That's completely different from the shout your abortions that we hear today. Furthermore, even though it's not much of a limitation or restriction, she did say in that clip that third trimester abortions should only be used in the rarest of cases. First, let's recognize that viability is at 23 or 24 weeks. And the third trimester starts at 28. So that is 4 or 5 weeks past the point of viability. But at the very least, she does support some form of restriction. Most of the Democrats, when asked if they support any restrictions, will say it's between a woman and her doctor. So basically, they support no restrictions. They kind of go in line with what New York and Colorado have been doing. And that is not acceptable. So it's not a ton, but here is one aspect where she is different from the rest. And she seems to be one of the most pro-life Democratic candidates running right now. If you're a pro-life Democrat, I feel really bad for you because you have no options whatsoever. It's sad that the most pro-life candidate only wants abortion restrictions at third trimester. That's not really pro-life at all, but it's the best you got. So all of those things combined, like I said at the beginning, Tulsi Gabbard is still one of the more interesting candidates. I feel like she is more forthcoming, more outright, and more clear than a lot of the different ones, especially Elizabeth Warren, who will not answer a single question honestly. That being said, her policies are not dramatically different from the rest of them. So if you are considering voting for her or want to vote for her, please be aware of her policies. So what are your thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard? Let me know down below. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and check out one of these videos you may have missed before you take off. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.